It's the end of the day with Ray. Hello, my friends. Well, I'm back in the studio, 4 days off. We celebrated the 4th of July here yesterday. And folks, over the weekend, I was doing some research regarding 9-Star and Lexmark. I'm on Lexmark's website. I find a contract that Lexmark has with state agencies. I go through all the fine print, if you will, of the contract. And I'm going to share some thoughts on that contract because I got some questions for Lexmark. But as I was doing this exercise, I started thinking to myself, boy, this is a much broader issue. And I believe we need to take this conversation to legislative houses all over the country. This happens to be the one in Kentucky. We need to take this conversation to the municipalities we do business with. We need to take this conversation to the school boards we do business with. We need to take this conversation to corporations' boards that we do business with. Because nobody in the free world wants to do anything with a product that's associated with the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act. Being banned by the Department of Homeland Security, and that ban come about as part of the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act, is something the world needs to understand. Because it's not just about print equipment. It's not about knocking out Lexmark and putting in another product, which, by the way, and I talked about this before, some of the other products that we sell are in fact Lexmarks with somebody else's name on it. But it's not about those products right now. It's not about the Sharps that are made by Lexmark. It's not about the Xeroxes that are made by Lexmark. It's not about the Ricos that are made by Lexmark. It's not about the Toshibas that are made by Lexmark. It's about 9-Star and Lexmark, because without 9-Star and Lexmark, those other folks don't have a product. And I assure you, I can't say I assure you because I don't know, but I hope that those other OEMs that are rebranding Lexmark have already made a decision to ban 9-Star altogether from their portfolios. Because I don't believe there's any such thing as one subsidiary over another subsidiary is not guilty. 9-Star owns 32 subsidiaries. And those subsidiaries are controlled by 3 people. I did an episode on it. It's right off of their consolidated financials. And at the end of the day, I believe that the free world needs to look at 9-Star as a company that was banned by the Department of Homeland Security under the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act. And that ban, as far as I'm concerned, should be applied to all of their subsidiaries. And who knows, maybe one day it will. But are we really going to have arguments about which subsidiary isn't banned over which one is, when all 32 subsidiaries are governed by 3 people, and we all know those 3 people report to the Chinese Communist Party? We all know that those 3 people that control all of 9-Star control a PRC company. And ladies and gentlemen, I started thinking of these venues that we would have this awareness meeting in. They all have presentation equipment. And we could go in there and we could share some information to these legislators, if you will, to these governing bodies, if you will. And here's some of the things that I would share. I'd pull up the Department of Homeland Security's website and I'd share the actual ban itself where they name the 8 subsidiaries. And then I would share real quickly the other 30-something subsidiaries that 9-Star owns. And I would just ask the question to the audience. Are we really going to try to figure out which subsidiary wasn't involved with slave labor and which one was? Or are we going to look at this whole company called 9-Star and all of its subsidiaries? Because the Department of Homeland Security just made the world aware that at least 8 of them are being banned based on the UFLPA. And then just let the audience come up with their own conclusion. Because I think most logical people will think like me. Only 8 of your 32 subsidiaries, and of these other folks that are not implicated, are they using parts or components from affected subsidiaries? Then I would share this page with them on the Consolidated Financial Report of 9-Star, where it clearly says that Lexmark is on the consolidated financials with goodwill. And then I would explain to them what goodwill means: an intangible asset that is associated with the purchase of one company by another. And the reason I would share that with the audience is because Lexmark continues to talk about how 9-Star is just one of their investors. 9-Star owns over 62% of their equity. They have them on their consolidated financials with goodwill. Goodwill, an intangible asset that is associated with the purchase of one company by another. Then I would take them to Lexmark's website and I would ask the audience, do you believe that Lexmark hid the response on their website? And the reason I'm asking that, because nowhere on their website does it say Department of Homeland Security ban. It says Lexmark issues statement on supply chain. And then when you read this statement, they don't talk about 9-Star and Lexmark's ownership. They call it one of its many suppliers. Lexmark calls 9-Star one of their many suppliers. In the Lexmark response that they hid on their website, it says Lexmark has stopped shipments from 9-Star and affected subsidiaries. So they just admitted to the whole world that they were using components or products by affected subsidiaries. When I did an episode just on this alone, I brought up the conversation, hey, where is the inventory that you already have now from the affected subsidiaries? Are you burning all of that, destroying all of that, or are you going to sell it to a government office when they do the next order? And then I would just ask the audience, do you believe this statement is a distraction? I might even say, do you believe that they hid it on purpose? Do you believe that Lexmark is being forthright? And if the answer is no, what else are they hiding? Then I would show the government agency the contracts that Lexmark has on their website. This particular contract is called NASPO Value Point. It's underneath government contracts. It's right there on Lexmark's website. Open it up. You can read the whole contract, and I did read the whole contract. I'm going to share with you some thoughts in a second. It tells you the states that are involved in the contract. And ladies and gentlemen, here's what I did. I just pulled out a few sections of the contract. I want to read those to you. And I want you to imagine yourself reading these to a school board, to a state entity. Maybe you pull up the actual contracts that these municipalities have with Lexmark, have with Phantom or G&G printers or any 9-Star subsidiary. Pull up the contracts at the actual city, the actual school district, and see if they have any verbiage like this. Let me read what I found. 4.1.8, contractors shall notify the lead state, participating entities, and all purchasing entities of any recall notices, warranty replacement, safety notices, or any applicable notice regarding products being sold. This notice must be received in writing via postal mail or email within 30 calendar days of contractor learning of such issue. And I realize in 4.1.8 they're talking about warranties and safety notices, but they say, or any applicable notice regarding the products being sold. Does a DHS ban on 9-Star Lexmark's owners qualify? Should they notify the government agency? I'm just asking the question. Let me read this because this might give it a little bit more substance. 4.8.12, laws and regulations. Any and all products and services offered and furnished shall comply fully with all applicable federal and state laws and regulations. Sounds to me like you got to abide by state laws, federal laws, and regulations. Does the Department of Homeland Security ban on 9-Star Lexmark's owners and 8 of their subsidiaries from bringing products to the U.S. supply chain based on the UFLPA Act qualify as something they should be notifying the government agency of? And ladies and gentlemen, the reason I'm asking that question is because on the response that I believe was pitiful on Lexmark's website, they actually say that they stopped shipments from affected suppliers. So if they stop shipments from affected suppliers, I've got to ask the question again. What about the product you already had in possession that was already shipped here to the free world? That's in a warehouse somewhere. Is this state agency going to get that next time they order something? Should Lexmark make the state agencies aware of the Department of Homeland Security ban? I believe they should. It would be interesting what Lexmark's answer to that question is. Non-appropriation of funds. And ladies and gentlemen, I talked about this non-appropriation of funds on a separate episode way before this Department of Homeland ban ever came into play. It was a couple of months ago. And I was referencing, what if a state governor banned China technology from being delivered inside government offices? If a government office is using Lexmark, which is definitely a China technology, right? It's a PRC company, 9-star, that owns them. So if the state banned China technology from going into the office and Lexmark was part of that ban, how would that agency appropriate money on the renewing year? Because all leases, whether they're 5 years or 3 years, they have to be funded by the year. How would they be able to fund another year's of payments on something that would be deemed illegal by the governor? How could they fund another year of an agreement if they violated the contract based on a ban by the Department of Homeland Security? We better start digging into this and digging into it pretty hard, because this affects our industry in a lot of different ways. Debarment 6.12. The contractor certifies that neither it nor its principals are presently debarred, suspended, proposed for debarment, declared ineligible, or voluntarily excluded from participation in this transaction contract by any governmental department or agency. This certification represents a reoccurring certification made at the time of the order's placement in the master agreement. If the contractor cannot certify this statement, attach a written explanation and review by the lead state. Should Lexmark make aware all the people that are underneath this contract with this verbiage aware of the Department of Homeland Security banning 9-star, its owners, from bringing products in the U.S. supply chain based on the UFLPA, when Lexmark says on their website that they stopped shipments from the affected suppliers? Ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot to think about in today's episode, but one thing's absolutely for sure. This story needs to be addressed. And I'm hoping more folks will get out in the marketplace and talk to the government agencies, talk to the school districts, talk to the city council members, because it doesn't just affect our industry. It affects the entire country, the entire free world of anybody doing business with PRC companies. Just some things to think about, my friends, because we all know this: status quo is the killer of all that'll be invented. Don't get stuck in status quo, and I'll see you all tomorrow.